Hi, everybody. It's Marcy from wavesofcommunication.com, and I'm here for my weekly live Q&A, language facilitation Q&A session. So if you are just joining me live, go ahead and put a question in the comments. And if you're watching on the replay, I just want to encourage you that this opportunity to join me live every Thursday is available. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Marcy Melzer, and I am an intuitive speech and language pathologist, and I am a language facilitation consultant. And what that means is that I help parents teach their late talking children how to use the words they need to share their wisdom with the world. And I do that in my Waves of Communication parent coaching programs. And I also do that in my live Q&As here on Thursday and the videos that I put out on my Waves of Communication Facebook page and YouTube channel. So if you're just joining me for the first time, know that there are many, many free resources that you can access if you are interested to learn more about language facilitation on both my YouTube channel and my website. All you have to look for is Waves of Communication. Just put it in your Google bar and you'll go to all of those resources. So, and once you do, then you can come back and join me on these live Q&A sessions if you have questions about your journey or what's going on with your child. And that's what I do every Thursday, is come here and share information and answer questions from parents. And so I do have a question that I want to get started with from Tanya, who is watching as a language facilitator mom. But before I do that, I just wanted to do a shout out to thank so many of the language facilitator professionals, the other professionals who are out there in the Facebook universe and YouTube universe, who are language facilitation professionals. And I'm saying language facilitation professionals because some of them are speech pathologists, some of them are audiologists, some of them work with families with positive parenting. Some of them work with energy and EFT. Some of them work with biomedical, and all of them at one point or another, floor time and different kinds of interactions, the way that they, as their chosen modality is as a professional, how they work with kids is they all are using language facilitation along with what they do. So there's OTs who do it. And what's happening more and more now is as more professionals are jumping on my page and watching my videos, and more people out there, parents are interested in language facilitation and they're talking to the other professionals that they work with, they're also learning that other people use language facilitation too. So what I'm going to encourage you out there is, if you do have a speech pathologist you're working with, an OT, a teacher, a special behavior interventionist, that special kind of clinician that you're working with, encourage them to watch my videos on my page, or at least show them this one so that I can send a shout out and say, hey, congratulations, because the professionals who decide to adopt language facilitation, and not just language facilitation themselves, but actually coaching parents in how to do language facilitation at home, those professionals are always parents' favorites. Number one, because they help parents, right? Instead of just being the therapist and having your kid take you to them, the parents who encourage, the clinicians, the professionals who encourage parents to use language facilitation at home, these are the people who understand that kids need to learn their basic life skills: walking, talking, regulating their emotions, regulating their behavior, all of the things that people teach their kids to do in the professional world. Parents, they need parents on board. They need parents to support, all of those. So, Danielle says, she's sharing. Thanks, Danielle, for sharing. So like I said, I just just want to shout out to a couple people. So there's Anna, who's helping people with stuttering. She's working in a way different way and coaching people in how to work with people who have stuttering. And then there's my friend Mark, who works with people with aphasia as a speech pathologist, and he works in a completely different way called the teaching of talking method. And then there's Shafak, who is a speech and language therapist, but she works online and she coaches parents and all different kinds of functional things, and she's in the UK. And then I have a friend, Mary, who is doing parent coaching as an early interventionist. She's in Wisconsin, and she's doing a lot of language facilitation and parent coaching to get parents really empowered to use language out there. Shout out to you, Mary. And then there's Devanji, who is an audiologist who is in India, who's working with families there, and she and I are going to start maybe doing some combination to do some parent teaching courses for language facilitation in India. So I just wanted to do a big shout out to all the other professionals out there who are reaching out to me in private messages and emails and connecting. And because when you as parents use your professionals as a language facilitator consultant, like I do for families, you know, if you use your therapists like that, then you're going to see way better outcomes in your kiddos. And the therapists that you love, the ones that are already intuitively connected with you and your child, and they're helping you solve your problems, those are the therapists you want to really hold on to. And it doesn't have to be a therapist. Like I said, it can be a doctor, like Dr. I'm sorry, I'm just watching the people as come in. What really is cool about all of these things that you really want to know is just, if you think about speech and language from the different as the speech therapy kind of norm, where you're getting kids to say words and enticing kids to do things with rewards or labeling things and naming things, those kinds of things do help kids learn to talk, but it's different than language facilitation. And I suspect that if you do have a professional like that working in your life, that's what's going to be, you know, that's where you want to go. That's what you want to look at. And so just a shout out to all those people. Thank you so much, because I do kind of get some flack sometimes from the speech therapy purists, I guess, you know, the people who are, you know, think that a speech therapist, a speech pathologist has to be involved in the process of teaching a child to talk. And it's just not so. The therapists who empower parents to do this intervention themselves, these are the therapists, teachers, doctors. Some of them are chiropractors. Some of them are GPs. Some of them are neurologists. Some of them are linguists, you know, like Dr. Harry. They all do different kinds of things, but the ones that are successful are the ones that empower parents. So if you're here watching this on my live Q&A, looking for suggestions of what you can do to get empowered to help your child, thank you for joining me, because it is my mission to help as many parents as possible realize that you have the power, ultimate power, in what you do to help your child and see what's going on. So, all right. So I did have one question, and I see a couple coming in. So hang on, Marilyn. I see your question. Great. And Danielle, thanks. And thanks for joining so much. I'm getting to your questions in a minute, but I do want to shout out to Tanya. So Tanya G, who is out there, she asked a question in my post that I put out yesterday, asking for questions or comments or suggestions or whatever. And what everybody out there watching today needs to know is Tanya's working it. Tanya has figured it out. She knows how to watch my videos, learn from me, and how to get the guidance she needs, because this is 3 weeks in a row she has asked a question on my Q&A. And each week she's telling me about her child's progress, and I'm giving her feedback on what to keep doing. And then the next week she gives me feedback on her child's progress, and I tell her what to do. So here's week 3 for you, Tanya, who is wise and smart. I'm not even sure, I don't remember how old her child is. If you're here, Tanya, hi. So Tanya, 2 weeks ago, here's what she said in her comment. 2 weeks ago, she stopped prompting, because that's always what we say. The number one blockage to kids learning to talk on their own is people prompting them to say words. So 2 weeks ago, Tanya stopped prompting, and then her child promptly stopped talking. right? Because he was so prompt dependent that when she stopped saying, say this, he stopped talking altogether. And she realized how much he was relying on her to be prompting him to say words. So she stopped prompting and he stopped talking. And then that was week number 1. And she kind of freaked out a little bit. And she said, now he's not talking at all. At least he was talking when I was prompting. Now he's not talking at all. And I said, just give it another week, because the first week with language facilitation, if a child is relying on you to prompt them, they have to get used to what else is there. You know, how is there another way to talk? Because it's not just that you stop prompting, it's that you are doing natural language facilitation. And that's what Tanya has done. If you're watching this and you want to know what's going on, she has watched my Tools for Parent Strategies videos. And she's incorporating those strategies instead of prompting. She stopped prompting and she started incorporating other strategies. Week 2, last week, she jumped on my live Q&A and posted a question and said that he started saying, you know, he wasn't really talking yet, because that was week 2. So this week, so between week 2 and week 3, she's only been at it week 3. 2 weeks ago, she stopped prompting. It's 2 weeks now. This past week, he started saying some words with her because she's doing some nice modeling of language, and he started saying words while she was talking. She didn't ask him to say words. He just started saying words with her. And 3 times this week, he said spontaneous things that surprised her, without any prompting at all, even when she wasn't talking. He said 3 things this week on his own. And she's just been using language facilitation for 2 weeks. And so, Tanya, I'm telling you, you're on the right track. Because what's happening now is your little guy's realizing, wait a minute, I can talk just because I want to talk. And that's the motivation that we're going for here with language facilitation. We have to get your child motivated to want to try, say words on their own, talking about their experiences, saying the things that they love without you pulling it out of them. Because every time you try to pull it out of them, you're showing them that that's what's necessary. That's how it works, especially if you've been doing that kind of prompting since your child was very young. If you started withholding things and making your child say a cookie or do a sign or hand you a picture from under 2 years old, or between 2 and 3 years old, if you used a lot of that stuff, you've changed a lot of habits in your child's brain about learning language. But what's cool and what's awesome, and what Tanya is figuring out, is that you can change it. You can change a mindset about how to learn language, because here's the thing, that whatever they're asking for, the iPad, the cookie, is nowhere near as motivating as being able to share the ideas in your mind and your heart finally with words instead of having behaviors. That's the most motivating thing to a child ever. And so it's just like a child who wants to learn how to go potty in the potty because they don't want to wear diapers anymore. Kids want to learn language because they don't want to have tantrums and use this behavior to communicate anymore. They don't like it, just like they don't like diapers. They're motivated to change this behavior. And if you show them how, they will. They do. They are. So that's the thing. So anyway, thanks for sharing, like I said before. And I wanted to reach out to Tanya and say, all right, but let me get now to the next question. So like I said, thanks for sharing, Danielle. Marilyn says now, my son has chosen not to speak, okay? He knows how to, but won't. How can I motivate and encourage him to speak spontaneously? He will say a perfect sentence, but when asked to repeat, he mumbles. Do you have any suggestions? So Marilyn, hopefully you were listening while I was just talking about what happened with Tanya, because you need to do the same thing. The first reason I know that you are prompting is because you say he won't talk and he refuses to talk. That means that you're asking him to talk. It's just like if I said, go put this in the trash for me, and the child went, obviously they're refusing to do something that you asked them to do. And you're telling me, Marilyn, that your boy is refusing to say words even though he knows how, because he says sentences and he says spontaneous words. So there's only 2 reasons that children refuse to say words. Either number 1, they think it's too hard. Like it's so hard for me. My mouth doesn't even work, and I've never said words before, and I think it's more difficult than climbing Mount Everest. That's one reason that a child won't say words. The second reason that a child won't say words is because they don't want to, right? And so there is, and the reason a child doesn't want to talk is because there is no motivation for them to talk. There's no reason, there's no whatever. That's why parents, they up the ante with the motivation to make the reward bigger. Well, you can't have this unless you say the word. You can't have the iPad. That makes the motivation go higher. And so the child is supposed to try harder. And that's what you've taught your child exactly, because if you push the issue, your child will try so hard. But if you push the issue too far, it's too much work. And your child's doing it just to get the reward, saying whatever they're saying to get the reward, but they're not saying the word spontaneously. So the problem here, Marilyn, is that you're not teaching your child to say those spontaneous words. The only words they hear you saying are, say cookie, say thank you, say, whatever you're asking them to say. So the suggestions are, you need to reevaluate what's going on that's blocking your child from talking and what's causing them to not want to do anything. And, if your child didn't want to hold your hand when you cross the street, you might force the issue, but that's not going to teach your child how important it is to hold your hand. But if you want your child to understand why it's important for them to hold your hand when you cross the street, you have to show them these are the fast cars, it's dangerous here, it's important you stay with me. You have to show them why. You can't just train them into, when you go to a street, hold mommy's hand, because they're humans and they need to understand why to do things. And parents who teach kids to say words, they understand the why for saying those words comes from, I get the thing. I say the thing to get the thing. That's the why. It's the only why. And language facilitation involves, if you're looking for spontaneous talking, like you said, more spontaneous things like, that's cool. That's a neat robot. Look at how funny that guy is. Oh my goodness, this is yucky. I don't like how that tastes. Like, if you want your child to learn how to say that kind of spontaneous commenting, putting their 2 cents in, sharing their wisdom with the world, then you have to show them how to do that. And that means you have to stop using the method of just teaching your child to memorize a word to make an action happen, because memorizing words isn't the same, as there's always a question, there's always a problem to solve, there's always a quiz show. I call it the quiz show. You might be asking your child questions or prompting them to say, I don't know how you're prompting, but what you're doing is you're teaching your child. You're teaching your child, and their brain knows how to learn language from you, but you're teaching them to say words as a behavior. So you have to shift over to language facilitation. So Marilyn, the first place I suggest you start, if you don't know anything about what I'm talking about, and this is all brand new and you've never heard me on a video before, the first place to start is the free class on my website, wavesofcommunication.com. It's a free class. You can access it. All you got to do is put your email in. And then in the free class, you'll realize what's going on to cause the blockages in your child's natural, spontaneous speech. You'll realize in that class, you'll see what happens. And then if you want to know how to fix it, then you have different avenues you can use. You can follow the videos that I do on Facebook and YouTube. There's almost 200 videos over there that you can see, all from what is language facilitation, what's the research behind it, why does it work, to ways to change your child's brain, to ways to play with puzzles, to do all of that. Or if you want to figure out, if you want to learn how to do it exactly, that's the programs that I teach parents to do, is to, train them how to do it, because it works differently for every household. I can't train you here exactly what's going on. So here's Hira, who says, it's been a week now. I was prompting all these while. He has echolalia and now he has delayed echolalia. How do I help? So Hira, you said you've been prompting all that while. I'm not sure what you mean. It's been a week now. What have you been doing for a week? You know, if you have, I'm trying hard to stop prompting, right? You need to try hard to stop prompting. And the way that I usually encourage parents to do it in my program is that, you know, you can't expect yourself to go from prompting 24/7 from sun up till sundown. And just turn it off cold turkey. You can't expect that from yourself, because remember, we talk about with language facilitation, if the strategies aren't fun, if it isn't fun, it isn't fun for the kiddo, but if it isn't fun, it isn't fun for parents. And what a lot of parents do is they give up their own fun and sacrifice it for their kids. And they're like, this isn't very fun for me, but you know, I know it's important for my child, so I'm going to do it even though I feel like an idiot or whatever. And that's not what language facilitation is about. Your child sees right through everything that you're pretending to do, that you're trying to do. If you're trying to be like the speech therapist, if you're trying to be like, you know, me, even, you know, if you're trying to be like anybody besides yourself, your kiddo sees right through there. Your child is connecting with you, the mommies especially, more than anybody. They're connecting with the mom. They know what you're thinking. You gotta have fun with this. And if you worry, am I doing it enough? Am I doing it too much? Am I doing whatever? It's gonna block your progress. So my suggestion is, whenever I try something new, like if I try a new diet, if I'm going to do a new exercise program, if I'm going to do whatever, I always say, what is something I can do every day? Just a little bit of something. So, sorry, my nose itches. You know, like when I lost weight, I started walking, and I was anti-gym and didn't want to go at all at that point. And what I did was just start walking around my apartment complex. And what I tell people with language facilitation is, pick one activity that you do every day. Getting dressed, taking a bath, reading books. One thing that you do every day with your child. And it's different for everybody. Maybe every day you walk around the block. Maybe every day you pick up dog poop. Maybe every day you go to the mailbox. Maybe every day you put on clothes. Whatever you do every single day, kind of the same way, that's what you pick. That's what you pick, the first thing. Because you don't do everything the same way every day. You just do that one thing. And if you don't, then you need to make a commitment. All right, this one thing, every day we get the mail, we're going to do it the same way. Because the mail comes every day, or at least 6 days a week in the United States. So, you know, every day mail time is when I'm going to try as a parent to be a language facilitator with my child. I'm not going to prompt at this moment. I'm just going to do the strategies that I watch on Marcy's videos. In this one moment, plan it out ahead in yourself and just have fun. Have the most fun ever period of time, opportunity to collect the mail that you ever saw in your life. Just have fun with it. And whatever comes out of your mouth, even if you prompt, just swap it up and provide a nice model instead. And just encourage your child. Don't expect anything from them. Don't expect them to say mailbox. Don't say mailbox, 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 mailbox. If you do that, then you haven't been watching my videos. If you don't know how to do language facilitation, you need to get and watch my videos to figure out some strategies. I do strategies every week. There's a video, 200 videos of strategies. That's the other thing about this whole process is you have to take responsibility. As a parent, remember I said parents are the best language facilitators. That's not just some slicko thing just to make you try to work with me. No, I'm saying this because as a speech therapist trying to get kids to talk, I wasn't as effective as the parents. And I'm one of the best speech therapists on the planet. I can get a lot of kids to talk. But I don't work with kids everywhere, and just me working with them one time a week wasn't enough. So parents need to learn how to do language facilitation, but you don't need to learn how to do speech therapy. You don't need to learn how to memorize, imitate. If it doesn't feel good for you sitting at the table doing flashcards, drill through stuff, memorize, yada, yada, yada. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. If your child loves that, if your child loves to sit at the table and memorize words and that's their superpower, then that's the child. But I'll tell you what, that's very many fewer than parents who are forcing their kids through that activity. Because if you're forcing your child through any activity, it doesn't matter how good and beneficial and wonderful it is for them, like eating spinach. Everybody should eat a pound of spinach every day or whatever. That would be great for us. But if we hate spinach, there's psychological stuff that happens in our brain that makes us not want to eat spinach. Sorry. I know I'm rambling here, but this is what I need to let you know. This is how I coach the parents in my program. When they come to me and say, it's hard for me to stop, I'm like, well, then you're trying too hard. You're not making it easy. You're not making it happy. You're not making it feel safe because you're like afraid I'm not doing it right. Anytime you say, I'm afraid I'm not doing it, I'm scared of it. Think about the words that are coming out of your mouth. Your mindset, this mind fixes this mind. And if your mind is fixated on prompting is the way, and even if you were told by someone else, prompting is the way to get your kid to talk, they were right. It is the way to get your kid to talk, but they are talking just to say words. And prompting will make them say words every single time, as long as you have the big enough reward. It will work every time. But if you are looking for spontaneous conversational back and forth exchange language, then you got to stop prompting. You got to stop. And if you want to figure out how, like I said, you got to look in my stuff. You got to look in the videos. So here are two. Okay. So it's been since you joined the course. Okay. So you must be in the independent study course. A week now, he was prompting all the while. He has echolalia. He has delayed echolalia. All right. So the thing is, don't worry about what's coming out of his mouth, Hira. The first week or two, especially if a child's very prompt dependent, and every child's different. Here, I don't know how old your child is either. That's the other thing. Sometimes it depends on how much language they've heard, it's how much prompting they've had, all of that. So, Hira, what you need to do is stick to your guns. If you're in my course, then you will have done and established your language facilitation plan, where you are creating the new habits based on all the suggestions that I have in the independent study course. What I teach you in the independent study course. So there's ways to work with me. You can work with me as a client one-on-one, or you can be like Hira and work at the independent study course and then come here on the Q&As and get help. So that's what's going on, and that's a good way to do it. But when you do, make sure you let me know, hey, I joined the course and this is where my child is and he's 6 years old and whatever, because I don't know that from you just joining. So that's what I got to let you know. So Hira says he's 3 and he's stuck in echolalia. So he has so far learned what he's learned by memorizing words, just by memorizing. And he's using the echolalia to tell you, and now it's delayed echolalia. So like I said, what happened with Tanya's boy, what happens with most people, the first week, they just talk less. And if he was using words before on his own as echolalic speech, there's different reasons that kids use echolalic speech. And again, we're not trying to make them stop doing all of that. We're not trying to make them stop doing anything. We're just trying to show them how the natural speech works. Because right now they only know communication works with somebody says something, I get something. Somebody says something, I get something. Somebody says something, I get something. So mom was doing prompting, child was using echolalic, and kids use echolalia or behaviors, which echolalia is, when they don't know the words. So they're trying to grasp for something to communicate the feeling, need, want, idea that they don't have words for. And it comes out with the echolalic thing. So what's happening is your child is wanting to initiate speech, but he still doesn't know what the right words are to use because you've only been doing your language facilitation modeling for a week. So, or 2 weeks or whatever you've been in the course. And sometimes it takes a little while for you to do that, but you have to decrease your prompting like down to almost nothing and increase your language facilitation effort time as much as you can. So like I said, if you're in the course and you're already 2 weeks in, you should be up to like an hour a day of time that you are using your specific language facilitation talk that you learn how to do in my course. If you're at that level, you should have your habits that you're working on yourself, and you should be taking video to continually look at your child and watch yourself and monitor yourself with your prompting, because you're changing your own habits to become a language facilitator. You don't become a, You don't become a nurse overnight. You know, you have to do training and you have to do practice and you have to do all that stuff. You don't become a language facilitator overnight either. You learn the theory, you practice it, you see what works. And remember, in the program, you'll see that we always have to make changes. So that's why you have to try things and let me know results. So this delayed echolalia is still on the right path. Don't stop your language facilitation. He's making the shift in his mind from I communicate my feelings with echolalia to what are the words to communicate my feelings? And so when kids are already verbal, they're at different levels and they're starting to use words. So you need to keep working your way through the videos in the course and understand all of those levels. There's a whole process that kids go through. And at this stage, until they're starting to use echolalic, and that echolalia starts to decrease and decrease to the point where you're getting more spontaneous, appropriate single words and phrases that don't sound like the echolalia. And it goes like this. You know, the echolalia is the primary speech and their occasional single words are down here and it fades like this direction. The echolalia will decrease as their confidence and ability to use their own spontaneous language comes out to share the most important things, which are their feelings, emotions, and opinions that they couldn't otherwise communicate, the stuff you can't read their mind about. So that's what's important. So how do you promote expressive language? You promote expressive language by talking to your child, by not forcing them. That's Danielle says. Danielle, how do you promote expressive language? Here's the thing. When non-late talkers, when you and I learn to talk from our parents, no one sat down and taught us vocabulary. This is, you know, your mom did it while you were having fun, while you were washing. You know, let's wash your hands, let's wash your elbows, let's wash your, you know, you learned on the fly, you learned during life what those words were and how to use those words, both the vocabulary and the use and the semantics and the syntax and all of that stuff. You learned all of that stuff from listening to your parents talk. So you can't possibly start to put your own independent vocabulary, words, sentence, syntax, grammar, structure, all that stuff that makes natural verbal talking. You can't, as a human, learn to start to put that together unless you hear someone else using it. It's like foreign language learning. When you just go to the high school or Spanish class and they teach you the verb conjugations, or how you say this, that, those, there, thy, all that. How do you work that together? You memorize it, you put it together, and then you go to have a conversation with somebody and you're, I don't know how to use that stuff. I don't know how to do those things, right? Speech therapy teaches kids language like high school English without the conversational part. Like high school English teaches kids grammar. Like high school foreign language teaches kids foreign language. You learn all the vegetable names. You learn all the city names. You learn all the verbs, all the whatever. And then nobody has conversation because you're all English speakers speaking English and learning vocabulary in another language. It's not until you get the advanced levels of learning language that the teacher doesn't speak English at all. They speak the new foreign language, right? So teaching your child English or Bengali or Tamil or Hindi or whatever language you're teaching your child, depending on where you live in the world, Sweden, Swedish. I've got people, Italian, their kids are learning all kinds of languages. But the thing is, in order to learn that language, the language that you as parents want them to learn, they have to hear you speaking it normally. And whenever you start to try to pull language out, you change how you talk. You change it from conversational, how you talk to your babies naturally, to suddenly I have to change how I talk to my child because my child can't listen to me. And you're wrong. That's what's wrong. Speech therapists change how they talk to kids to get them work in that session. It doesn't work for parents. Kids listen to parents, and it's a different part of the brain that's activated. So that's how you promote, Danielle, as a 6-year-old. It's super neat to have a 6-year-old who has a ton of language inside, and you start to do language facilitation and stop prompting because suddenly, right? Suddenly they realize that they have it in them. They have it in them anyway. And you promote expressive language with two things: love and money, like my friend Dr. Harry always says. You can get it with money or exchange all the time. If you want the iPad, say iPad. That happens all the time. But the other reason that kids talk, the spontaneous talking, the other stuff that we're talking about here, that comes from love. I can't wait to tell you how excited I am that we're going to the zoo. This is the coolest thing I ever saw in my life. That tastes terrible, and I never want to eat it again. Your child has all these ideas in their head, and you're trying to teach them cookie and give me cookie. And gimme cookie means the same as cookie. It doesn't even mean gimme, right? Because you have to teach gimme when you learn about your child giving you other things. And you can't teach that grammar. It comes from listening to parents talking. That's how you promote expressive language, but is by not trying to promote it, is by facilitating it, is by modeling it, is demonstrating, oh, this is how you do it. Right? Just like you train your child everything else. That's what's important about all of this process that parents learn. And that's why, like I said, it doesn't take a speech pathologist to do this, because there is no speechy training that's necessary. Kids just have to listen to natural language. But the problem is speech therapy untrains them. It trains them out of listening to their parents, and it trains their parents out of talking naturally. You need to train your child and train yourself to talk naturally. And that's how your kids learn to speak naturally. It seems very simple, doesn't it? It seems very rudimentary. Like, if I talk naturally, my child will learn to talk naturally. If I talk like a robot and ask them to say words every time they do it, like a behavior, then I'm going to get that kind of language out. And if you look really hard, like I coach people to do in my independent study course, if you work with me directly, I call you out on it. I look at your situation on video and I say, with all due respect, and I love and appreciate all the effort you're putting in to try to teach your child, but there's different ways that are way easier for you. Way easier and way more fun. Not just for you, but for your child. So here's the first tip. If your child doesn't like anything that you do, your husband does, their brothers and sisters do, the therapist does, that you take them to, if they don't like it, for whatever reason, it doesn't even matter why they don't like it. If they don't like it, it completely shuts down their ability to learn new, especially challenging things in that situation. You can't force a child to want to share their ideas, right? I mean, you can't force anyone to want to share their ideas. They have to want to. It has to come out on their own. Tell me how you feel. Tell me how you feel. Like, there's nothing worse than that, right? When do you explain how you feel? When you feel it, when it comes out, right? So Sai says, with no prompting, new words are emerging. Atta girl, Sai. Good for you. And Sai's these guys, that's it. Their kids, this isn't very long. They've been there just a couple weeks. And they are working with me. And she stopped prompting, and new words are emerging. And new words will emerge all the time. And it always happens when you least expect it, too. It always happens when you least expect it. So here's Taslima. Hi, Taslima. Thank you for joining me. She's a first-time listening, and you are amazing. Thank you so much for listening and the compliment. I appreciate. She says, my kid is 6.9 years old, and he still gets irritated whenever I try to teach him. Doesn't like it. Any word, what should I do? You should stop teaching him words. Yeah, that's the first thing. Most of the time, he had meltdown whenever speech therapist came, right? So, the first thing, like I said, is if it isn't fun, it isn't fun. And, it seems like a catchy little thing. It seems like, oh, if it isn't fun, it isn't fun. Let's just make it fun. Teachers make it fun. You don't understand. There is in your brain, if you don't take that sentence seriously, you don't understand how much motivation matters when your child is learning language, because neurologically, you can't learn anything new unless you're motivated to try at it. And if your child is not using verbal speech, then they don't want to, or they think it's too hard. And they could think they don't want to because they think it's too hard. So how can we make it easier? We have to make it easier by facilitating language and not forcing them to try things that are too hard for them. You have to make it easy, happy, safe, and fun. So like I said, if this is the first video that you're watching of mine and you want to go down the rabbit hole of language facilitation and learn how to help your child, the best place to start is with my free introductory class on my website, wavesofcommunication.com. All you got to do is put your email in there, and the only thing your email in there gets you is follow-up emails to let you know every time I go live here, so that whenever I put a new video on, you automatically get every new resource that I upload directly into your inbox. You get a notification every time I'm live. And you can always opt out of that. But that's what you get with your email. And you also will understand what's going on in your household and why language facilitation is not only different than speech therapy, but also necessary for all families to do. So do I suggest to stop? Hira says, do I suggest to stop speech therapy? That's a really good question, Hira. The thing that I suggest, I'm not saying that speech therapy is bad for your child unless the speech therapist is working only with prompt-based teaching. If your speech therapist is using PECS, iPad system, any kind of exchange, like holding two objects and having your child saying, do you want this or this? A choice is a prompt. A question is a prompt. A do you XYZ, can you, should you, show me. Those are prompts. If your therapist is doing that, then you need to talk to your therapist about watching my channel and saying that you want them to do more play-based natural language facilitation and eliminate prompting and just model how to play with toys and interact with people. Because a speech therapist doesn't have to use prompting. And smart ones know when to stop. But speech therapists who don't know how to facilitate language naturally through play and intuitively read a child and see their behavior and realize that they don't like it. Like I said, I mean, if I showed up at a house, when I was working as a speech therapist, if I showed up at somebody's house and the child didn't like me, how was I ever going to get anything done with that kiddo? So in fact, that's when I started coaching parents, was like, it's going to be traumatic for the child, and it's certainly no fun for me. I don't want to play with anybody who doesn't want to have fun, you know, and I had fun things to bring. And sometimes I would do fun things, or I'd show mom how to do fun things. And then the child would join us and I would show mom how to make things fun, because like I said, if it isn't fun, it isn't fun. And I didn't want to do that at work every day. I didn't want to force kids to try to say stuff and do that. I didn't want to do that as a therapist. And parents didn't want me to do that. They didn't want their kids crying and whining and screaming when I came for speech therapy because I was trying to force them to do something. What a nightmare. Nobody wants to work like that. The therapist, the child, the parent, nobody. It's no fun. And I promise you, the speech therapist, she's going to leave that session exhausted and humiliated and feeling like she did nothing, because frankly, she did nothing but traumatize everybody. Because at that point, as a speech therapist, you need to give up the ship and start to say, how can I teach this mom how to interact with this kid? As a speech therapist, you should know how to help a mom facilitate language in her house without making the child say a word. And if you don't, then, and your therapist doesn't, that's the therapy you need to stop, because it is a waste of your time. If your child doesn't like it, you're wasting your time, even if it's free, right? You know, it's like say, oh, I'd like to have a free traumatizing emotional session once a week. Thank you very much. Your child didn't pick that just because it was offered to you by the state, county, public service, school district, whoever, this free stuff. If your child hates it, you got to stop it. End of. There is something else. I promise you, there is. You must stop it. That's the first thing. If your child's not motivated to try, it's not working anyway. All it's doing is delaying what you could be doing positively with language facilitation. So that's the whole deal about that. So that's how you have to decide about your therapist. You have to judge, because I don't know what your therapist is doing with your child. If you don't know what your therapist is doing with your child, then you need to find out. That's the first thing you got to do. And if you agree with it, and if you don't understand what your therapist is doing with your child, then it's your job to ask your therapist. Because that's what the parents do for me. They're like, my child's doing X, Y, and Z. Why are they doing that? I'm like, what are you doing? I got to know what you're doing, because I'm not there in your house. I got to know what's going on in your house. So that's the whole thing, right? Sai said, okay, so Sai said the boy's saying, her boy's starting to say some words. She's working with me in the program. She's a couple weeks in. And just like Tanya said, those spontaneous words pop out, but you don't hear them again. And this is totally normal. This is totally normal. In fact, if your child is just emerging with speech and all kinds of weird sort of things come out, I did a video on my YouTube channel, seven developmental speech patterns, normal developmental speech patterns that freak parents out. And these are things that toddlers always do, but if a late talker who was, especially if your child was using echolalia or saying sentences like I want whatever, or imitating things that had perfect grammar, and then the stuff that starts coming out of their mouth is gobbledygook, that's okay, because the stuff that's coming out of their mouth is their speech. The stuff that they're saying that's perfect, that sounds like exactly like it sounded on TV, that's just something they memorized. Like singing a song, you know, they don't have to even understand the meaning of that. So it's okay, Sai. Stay with what you're doing. Stay with your language facilitation. Your boy's just understanding how it all works and figuring it out how it goes, as long as you're not seeing any negative behavior. So that's the other thing you have to know to gauge. If you're doing language facilitation, you watch my strategies on my videos, you decide to start doing them at your house, you go to start doing those strategies, and your child runs away from you, then that strategy is not for you, right? Whatever it is that you're doing isn't working. You need to look at another video, try another thing, jump on this Q&A and say, I tried the puzzle strategy and I did X, Y, Z. Because again, I got to know what you're doing. I give these strategies generally, but you as parents know your children, you know your household. Some of you've got 1 child, some of you've got 5 children, 10 children. You know, some of you live in places that have electricity. Some of you live in places that have, you know, very poor internet. Some people of you know, all that. Your kids go to school, they have therapy, they don't. Every family is different. So all the strategies that I give, you have to figure out how to incorporate them. And if you want my guidance, you have to let me know, right? So don't worry about the speech therapy unless you feel like it's not helping your child. If you're not paying for it and your therapist isn't prompting, then go, enjoy it. The therapist is probably if your child's having a great time and he loves the therapist, just like at the beginning of this video, I talked about the therapist your kids love. Do that. Do all kinds of that. There's amazing therapists out there in the world who know how to work with kids and facilitate language. There are. So if you're stuck with one who doesn't, get out. If you're lucky enough to find one that does, stick with them, right? And if you don't have access to one, then you can work with me. That's why I made my online program accessible to everybody. So that's how that goes. All right, let's see. So, yep, Taslima, watch my videos, start doing it, start with stopping prompting. Huma says, my son can understand what we say or ask him to do, but he doesn't use his words even for necessary things. He just points like water cookie. What if a child is not motivated to use words and he knows a lot, right words, doesn't want to use them? Okay, so Huma, something's going on that there's not connecting with your child, that words need to come out of his mouth. He knows that if he's writing words, he's got some relief of, oh my goodness, my ideas can come out at least with this writing. And so he's communicating with his body in written form, in, you know, whatever he's using with his body to communicate. And right now in your household, it's working. It's working well enough for your child to not have motivation to try harder. Okay. And that's what happens with kiddos who get stuck in and become very effective at nonverbal communication, Huma. And some of these kids, especially older kids, they get really good at communicating all their feelings with a facial expression. You know, they can go, look like that, and you know what they want. You know when they eat, you know when they whatever. And usually when kids get really good, or parents tell me they know everything, because how do you know your child understands everything if they're nonverbal? He's communicating nonverbally to you, and you are interpreting his nonverbal communication. That's how you know he's responding. You give him a direction, he does something. He follows that direction. He does it for you. So you know he understands. So the words are in there. The comprehension is in there, but something's not connecting. He has no motivation to try hard because he might think that words are challenging. And so you might need to work with me in one of my programs. You're going to need to figure out what's blocking him from wanting to use words with his mouth. And this is what happens to parents, all over. There's different reasons that cause kids to be late talking. And just understanding your situation, that he's so good at nonverbal communication, your job as a language facilitator, you would need to work on strategies to what I call reach and teach. Show him how to use words for all the nonverbal things that he's communicating. That would be the strategy that I would give you in my program to show you how to do that. Kids get stuck in nonverbal communication and they learn to craft it. They get better and better and better and better and better and better as they get older at the nonverbal communication. It's just the wrong path. And when parents show them, hey, dude, speech is easier. You can do this easier. It's not as scary as you think it is. It's not as hard as you think it is, because we do initial language facilitation stuff that is fun. And there's no more pressure, because a lot of kids do their own nonverbal things because the pressure of someone asking them to say words is too much, and they just run away from the teaching opportunity altogether. And they're like, no, I'll just craft this other thing. I'll just teach more and more people. A lot of kids who are like that, Huma, you might be in this situation. Their kids will find any new place, a family gathering, a party, a school classroom, or whatever. They find the one teacher or friend in the group, the cousin, who gets them, who understands their nonverbal, and they cling to them when they're not with you. Of course, they cling to you first. They cling to that friend or cousin or whoever, and that cousin is the one who interprets for them all their nonverbal communication around. And they learn how to communicate with individual people that way. And there's a 9-year-old boy in my program and a 6-year-old boy, like all the kids who are older than 5, because they have a bigger level of consciousness. They're really trying to use their nonverbal communication to communicate all these things. And they're really getting good at it. Right? So if you get really super good at doing a thing one way, a thing like communication, you do it in one way, you get really good at doing it that way, then shifting to do it a new way can be kind of challenging. So we have to work on mindset, your mindset, your kiddo's mindset, and that's how you make this change. That's how you make this change. All right, so Sihar says, hi, Marcy, thanks for your advice. I'm so glad you're here, Sihar. My son is improving. Woohoo! I'm repeating all the words with him on a daily basis. Now he tells his name. Whatever you're doing, as long as you feel good about it and you facilitate language in a way that's non-threatening to your child and you're seeing improvement, that's what it's all about. Good. I go 1 year for speech therapy, nothing happens. Now I myself, all the effort for his speech. Sehar, I'm telling you what, parents are better at this. Like I said, there were kids I was assigned to. I didn't choose who I got to work with as a speech therapist when I worked for systems or counties or clinics or whoever. They said, see these kids. And every kid I saw was different. Every family was different. Every mom was different. And you have to figure out what that individual family needs. But if you work at a clinic and you do the same thing every way with every kiddo, and the kids just come and they go one after the other, and you don't teach the parent how to do it, that's how parents end up going for months and years in therapy with no improvement. If you're in therapy now, you're better spending like half your session just talking to your therapist about your child. You will learn more from that. Because speech therapists are smart. They have to go to a lot of school. They have to learn a lot of stuff. So, hey, Ash, thanks for joining. Hey, Gladys, thanks for joining today. I see there's a bunch of people on. Thank you so much again for joining today. I'll give it a couple more minutes to see if anybody has any more questions that pop up, and let you know that, again, every Thursday, 2 p.m., on my Waves of Communication page or my personal page, if you're my personal friend, if you're in my language facilitation resources group, it pops up over there too. Every Thursday at 2, you can join me. And the way you can do it, I'm on this mission to help as many of you out there get your kids talking this summer. And so if you watch my videos, the Tools for Parents videos, and you can find them on Facebook on my Waves of Communication page, they're in a playlist, Tools for Parents. That's the nuts and bolts strategies. YouTube, same. There's a playlist, Tools for Parents Strategies. There are specific things that you can do during your everyday activities to help your child learn to talk this summer. But there is a process through this. It's not just sort of learn one thing and then another. That's why the videos are kind of all over the place, because there's parents at every stage of the journey. There's parents with nonverbal late talkers, and there's parents with kids who are verbose, but they're still late talkers because all their speech that's coming out of their mouth is just needs-based. And that's not real language communication. And all of those kids are different, and they're late talking for different reasons. But the thing that's the same about all of them is that they have human brains, and they've learned from looking at thousands of MRI studies that these human brains are all fundamentally the same. And they also do know how to learn. And with using language facilitation strategies, parents, that's what they're doing. That's why when the parents who are in my program, you see those testimonials. If you haven't watched the testimonials, you got to see what they're doing. I didn't know if this was going to work for the older kids, but the thing is, it's working better for the older kids because they have the consciousness to understand, my parents trying to teach me now. This other stuff that I didn't like, they stopped doing that. Life is happy for me, and I can learn language with fun from my mom. When kids make that shift, you can teach them anything. You can teach them how to say everything that's in their mind. They are waiting for you to do this. And I suspected it was true when I was working with families, because like I said, even kids who didn't work with me, their kids were making improvement when I coached their parents. And then when I started working online and I started not seeing any kids, now there's more than 70 families in 10 countries who are abandoning this prompt-based stuff because they know it doesn't work, because they've been doing it for a long time. And they want something different. They try something different, and they realize how cool it is, how easy it is, and how they can do it. You don't need a speech therapist to teach your child to talk. You can do it. All you parents can do it. And they are. So, all right. So here's 2 more questions that came in. Ash says, Lydia can sing. She has a different nursery rhyme for each emotion, so I always know how she feels at said time. She's made her own language out of talking, out of songs without talking, Ash says. Oh, Ash, so your little girl is so smart. She's making up her own language by using these memorized songs. And it's super sweet, and it's super cool, and it's neat that you have learned how to understand her emotions while she's singing these songs. However, it is her own made-up language that's comprised of bits of things she's memorized. And while it is sweet and beautiful, and you understand when she sings Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, she means a certain emotion, no one else in her entire world can. And that's why I talk about kids being spirit kids, because they have wisdom that you as parents know how to find. Like, you learn how to find your child's wisdom and emotions and empower her to share her stuff through songs, which is fab and wonderful. And that could be the connector that gets her over to understanding how language goes, because there is a secret, and I'll give you a secret, Ash, that's so cool about this, is they did studies about kids with autism who are nonverbal kids. That's how they classified the kids with autism, that they just didn't have effective language use. And the language parts of the brain, when their parents talked to them, like the typical kids, it didn't light up in the same way. So they suspected at first that it was the language center of the brain that's like degraded in some way with kids who are late talking. But then they used the same subjects, and instead of listening to talking, they just had them listen to music. And it wasn't their favorite songs. It wasn't nursery rhymes. In fact, it wasn't even music that has words. It was instrumental music. And when the kids, the late talkers, listened to music, the language part of their brain lit up. No words in it. No singing. Just instrumental. Same kids' parents talking didn't light up. Listening to music did. So your little girl is so smart. She's trying to use music to help her little brain learn how to reconnect the language part. So even in one area of the brain, the language center, that, is as big as, I don't know, a walnut maybe, within that space, there are different neurons that process music. And if you can help those music neurons talk to the language neurons that aren't working so well, they can make new neural pathways. So singing with your child is great, but you need to sing songs they don't know, and you need to play music while you're talking about everyday life. And that's going to help you. That's going to be the behavior that's going to help you connect that, Ash. I want you to give that a try. So even though she loves those songs, don't take those songs away, because that's part of her language right now. But if you want to teach her new language, like general words or saying words about getting dressed, then you want to listen to music while you're talking normally about while you get dressed, like in conversation with language facilitation. And maybe listening to the music in the background is triggering the right neural pathways. Like that's the jolt she needs, because every kid needs something a little different. So that's a really, really interesting question. I hope, Ash, you give that strategy a try, and you'll come back next week and let us know, because I really want to know how that goes for you. I really do. All right. And Alexandra says, hi, Marcy. Hi. My son has autism and apraxia. He's 9 and basically nonverbal at this point. Okay, so Alexandra, that's not a question. That's a statement. And even though your child is basically nonverbal and 9 years old, apraxia, from the folks in the neurology world, tell me that it is nothing more than speech processes that are super slow. So slow that they're stuck. And it has nothing to do with the motor part and making your mouth do those kinds of things. And I don't know what you're doing. Like I said, if you want to tell me and you want to ask me a question about how to help your child, I have no idea what you're doing right now, because one of the things that every parent needs to do before they start doing any new strategies is they analyze what they're doing right now. And perhaps if prompting's getting in the way, or if, who knows what's getting in the way, because, some parents aren't prompting and their kids aren't talking, and we got to figure out what's going on in that circumstance. So you have to share more if you want me to be able to help you out. But I can tell you that I have a child who is almost 10, and he became conversational this week after 6 months of language facilitation, where he had lots of language, lots of speech, but it was not functional. He was using nonverbal communication like the other gal was talking about, and just echolalic words and memorized scripted stuff. That was all he had. And now he is explaining, he's being the personal trainer for their family. You'll have to watch that video. All of you folks with older ones, scroll through my Waves of Communication page and look for the video with the little boy who wrote on the wall, Luke is talking. It's very emotional and inspirational, and will show you that even these older kids, when you do the right intervention, you can get them talking. You absolutely can. It is not too late. It is not too late. All right. Sorry, itchy nose, and I need to have a little drink of water. Okay, Gladys has a question here, by the way. If I've been at this an hour, so I need to get going. This is going to be my last question for today, but thank you so much for joining, everybody. Gladys says, does interaction with other kids help them? Because that's what his therapist recommended. He's 2.5. Absolutely. Interaction with all people helps kids learn language, because kids learn language from listening to people talk to them, with them, about them, for them, surrounding them. Kids learn to talk from hearing people talk and listening to them. And what happens with a lot of kids who, have diagnoses of autism, ADHD, these kinds of things, they're not very good at listening to their parents talk. They're not good at all at it. They are really good at saying words when people prompt them, but they're not good at listening when parents even explain things to them. Because most kids who learn to say words to request things, they learn it as a behavior, and they learn all their other behaviors by watching people do things. So their communication, if they're using their body to communicate, they're learning things by watching other people use their body to communicate. It's a two-way language. So interaction with other kids, doing everyday things that other kids who aren't trying to teach them stuff, that's what will help your child learn to talk. And so your speech therapist is absolutely correct. As long as she says interaction with normal people and listening to people talking, that's what you can do. So, all right. So let's see. I might have to try that. She has echolalia. Yep. So there you go, Ash. Right. So you have to try that. Let me know if you try that. And Huma says, please explain what is language facilitation. Huma, you can look at the video on my website, wavesofcommunication.com, to understand what's going on, what language facilitation is, why it's different than speech therapy, what you can do to start language facilitation today with your child. All of that is in the free class on my website, wavesofcommunication.com. You just put in your email, you will get the access to the free class. If the free class is not enough and you want to work with me more, you can look at the programs in my Waves of Communication course. I have an independent study course that's $500, and that teaches you how to do it. But you have to dig in. You have to be honest with yourself about what you're doing and realize what you need to stop and how you need to change. Parents on this program, on this Q&A, are in my course, looking at things and coming here to ask questions. That's the most inexpensive way to work with me. If you want more guidance and you want me to engage with you, I have a starter program and a lifetime program that's only $3,000 for me to tell you exactly what to do from point A to Chatterbox, as long as you need, as long as you need strategies to help you learn to become a language facilitator. That's what I do in my Waves of Communication programs, is I train parents to not need me and not need speech therapists and not need anybody to teach your child to talk except you. You will become your child's best 100% confident and equipped speech language facilitator, verbal language facilitator. That's what I train parents to do in my Waves of Communication program. It's cheaper than speech therapy because you get lifetime support. So, unless you're getting speech therapy for free, but once again, you have to really gauge what is happening in that therapy, what's going on, how is it helping you get to this point. And if you can't afford my programs and you don't know how to access funds to invest in learning how to do this for yourself, then you have to follow my YouTube channel and start looking at videos and start learning strategies, because there are parents all over the world who can't afford to work with me who are seeing improvements in their children by watching my videos. But the most important thing is you can't get any improvement by just watching my videos. You have to take action every day as a language facilitator and consciously facilitate this spoken language with your child in a different way. You have to learn the strategies. You have to be responsible for doing the strategies every day, and you have to be responsible for making sure your child's not exposed to strategies that are going to hold them back, like prompting and exchange-based things like PECs and sign language and stuff. If you want your child to be natural conversational verbal speech, you have to give up the nonverbal communication methods. You can't do both. You can't do both. Your kids will give them up slower, but you just give up what you're teaching. You don't make your child stop doing anything. You just stop how you're teaching and change how you're teaching. And then your child's going to get to where you want them to get, right? They're going to learn what you teach them. So if you want to learn what language facilitation is and how to teach them, that's where my videos come into play. And the other thing before I leave, if I helped you on this video, please consider sharing it. Give me a like, and be sure to join me next Thursday, every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, US. No matter where I am in the world, I'm going to be coming live to do language facilitation Q&A. So you'll be able to see me next week, and that's how I'm going to leave you. I'll see you all next time on my next video. Have a great time and a great weekend.